Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a good day so far. I know that I miss you and wish that I were there with you today, but I do hope that you're staying on track and that you're getting all of your work done and that you're earning our next class pet. So I'm hoping to be able to give that to you tomorrow. Okay, so now we are going to continue on with lesson 7 of Don Quixote, and this is called Ironic Adventures. And if you don't know what ironic means, you will be learning about the idea of irony very soon in this lesson. And so that is one of our learning goals. I can identify the types of irony: verbal, situational, and dramatic. Sancho and Don Quixote encounter, and I can draft the introductory paragraph of my persuasive essay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be reading chapters 9 and 10. And so what I'd like you to do is you can go ahead and turn to chapter 9 in your Don Quixote book, chapter 9. Which chapter 9 is found on page number 24. It's called The Knight of the Wood. And would you also turn in your activity workbook to page 97, and it's activity page 7.1. I have a couple vocabulary words to teach you before we start on today's lesson. Okay, so on activity page 7.1, the first word is duel. A duel is a noun. It's a fight between two people with weapons, and it was a bigger thing back in the olden days. If you harmed someone's honor, they might challenge you to a duel to fight to be able to fight you. The next word is scheme. Scheme is a noun, a clever plan or plot to get or to do something. The next word is caravan. A caravan is a noun, a group of people, animals, or vehicles traveling together. The next word is bold. It's an adjective meaning fearless. The next word is foolhardy, which is an adjective meaning foolishly dangerous or daring. And number 6, dumbfounded, an adjective. When you are dumbfounded, you're shocked or surprised. Okay, we have a couple new pronunciations. Well, we have Cassioldea, and Tome Cecil, Tome Cecil, and Cassioldea. Those are not easy to say. Okay. All right. Those are our words. So, would you look at chapter 9, The Knight in the Wood? And I'm going to first read page 24. Would you follow along with me as I read page 24 to you? Don Quixote and Sancho were sleeping in the woods when a noise awakened them. 2 men had come on horseback. One of them got off and invited the other to stay. There was good grass for the horses and peace and quiet for thought, he said. Don Quixote looked carefully. One of them was wearing armor. Sancho, my brother, adventure is before us, he said. The other knight heard voices and asked who was there. Don Quixote answered, and they got together. The 2 squires took off in another direction. The life of a squire is indeed hard, isn't it? The new squire said. It wouldn't be so bad if we ate regularly, Sancho replied. So they don't eat that often. The other one took out food out of his saddlebag and they shared it. Then they watched the stars for a while and fell asleep. Their masters were neither eating nor sleeping. The other knight, who called himself the Knight of the Wood, said to Don Quixote, "The proudest moment of my life came when I defeated that famous knight, Don Quixote de la Mancha. I made him confess that my lady Cassioldea is more beautiful than his Dulcinea." So he doesn't even know that he's talking to Don Quixote de la Mancha. All right, so we might have two idealistic knights here, perhaps. I don't doubt that you have defeated the bravest knights in all Spain, but not Don Quixote de la Mancha, the self same said. Maybe someone who looked like him, but not him. So the reason why he says that is because he is Don Quixote and he knows he didn't defeat him. So he says, "Oh no, I can prove it to you. He's tall, thin, has a pointy nose, a big fallen mustache, and grayish hair," the other knight boasted. "His squire is a farmer by the name of Sancho Panza. His horse is named Rocinante, and the lady of his dream is Dulcinea del Toboso." So, do you think the Knight of the Wood knows he is talking to Don Quixote? I think it's pretty obvious that he doesn't know that that's Don Quixote. Okay, I'm going to continue reading page 25. The start of the first paragraph says, "It is absolutely false that you have defeated Don Quixote de la Mancha. I am Don Quixote de la Mancha, and you have never defeated me. I'll prove it to you with the strength of my arms." Sorry, I just wanted to set that right so you can kind of see me too. "So will I, as soon as day breaks," his opponent said confidently. So the strength of my arms means they're going to fight. Sancho was speechless when he heard the news. A duel! He feared for his master. The other squires suggested they too fight with their masters while their masters fought. That was the custom in their homeland, he said. Sancho replied that he was not going to fight. He had been a peaceful man all his life and intended to remain one. In broad daylight, Sancho saw an enormous nose on the other squire. This time it must really be some kind of magic, he thought. Don Quixote, Don Quixote, on the other hand, could not see his opponent's face, but he did see his armor. It was completely covered with tiny mirrors. He noticed too that the knight was a small man carrying an enormous lance. "The winner of our fight will decide the fate of the loser," uh, the Knight of the Woods said. "Agreed," Don Quixote answered. Sancho climbed a tree to see the battle better, or as Don Quixote accused him later, to have a better view without any danger. They fought. Don Quixote easily defeated the other knight. The fallen man looked dead. His squire, without the horrible nose, came running. So did Sancho, who wanted his master to kill the challenging knight. But then Don Quixote and Sancho saw the very figure of Samson Carrasco, the university graduate. And without the false nose, they discovered Tome Cecile, Sancho's neighbor. The Knight of the Wood came too. Don Quixote put the sword to his chest. He made his opponent confess that Dulcinea was far superior and more beautiful than his Casildea. Top of page 26. That the two men looked so familiar puzzled him a bit, but he concluded they were not the men they seemed to be. "Oh, they're just look-alikes sent by the enchanters. My enemies enjoy confusing me," he said. Of course, there was no enchantment involved. Samson had planned the scheme, thinking that he could easily defeat his friend and make him go back home. Unfortunately for Samson, he had been very wrong. So these are his friends trying to disguise themselves in costumes and try to get him to go home. So what does Don Quixote mean when he says, "I'll prove it to you with the strength of my arms"? So he means like muscles, the strength of his muscles, so that they were going to fight. Sometimes arms can also mean weapons. So perhaps it also means that it's their lances that they will fight with. Okay, what is strange or ironic about Sancho saying he has been a peaceful man all his life and intends to remain one? So the word ironic means the direct opposite of what you would expect. So he is a squire, which is a knight in training, and it's a knight's job to fight. And so that's what's kind of strange about Sancho saying that. So ironic means the direct opposite of what one expects to happen actually occurs. There are different types of irony, including verbal and situational. What do you think verbal irony means? So verbal means spoken. So it's when someone says something that has the opposite meaning of what they are intending to say. So then what do you think situational irony means? So situational irony is the exact opposite result of a situation occurs from what a person expects to occur. So the exact opposite of what they think might happen. So in this example, Sancho says he is peaceful, which means the reader expects he does not like to fight. On the other hand, however, he's a squire, and the reader knows he is a knight in training, and knights are expected to fight. This is an example of both verbal and situational irony because what Sancho says is the opposite of what the reader would expect him to say and do as a squire. Okay, our last question here is who is the Knight of the Wood and who is the squire? So after they fought, they found out that the Knight of the Wood is Samson, Don Quixote's friend, the university graduate. And Samson's face is hidden by his armor and his helmet until Don Quixote defeats him. The Knight of the Wood squire is Sancho's neighbor. He is wearing a false nose at first, so Sancho does not recognize him. So I thought at first that he cut off his nose because he said he came running with him without his nose on, but it was just that it was a disguise. Okay, so they did that so that they would come home. Okay, the next question is, does Don Quixote believe the Knight of the Wood is really Samson? And how does he explain why the knight looks like Samson? Well, he doesn't believe he's really Samson. He thinks those people or wizards that cast spells made him look like Samson to confuse him. So the same wizards that messed with the windmills and messed with Dulcinea's beauty also made the other person look like Samson. Okay. Last question. With the information you now have, did the Knight of the Wood know from the beginning that he was talking to Don Quixote? What line can you point to in the text that provides this information? Okay, so the text says, Samson had planned the scheme thinking he could easily defeat his friend and make him go back home. And so that's why they knew it was a big scheme, a big plan. Okay, so now we are going to read chapter 10, The Adventure of the Lions. Okay. Okay, so we're going to read straight through, it looks like. 28, stopping before the last sentence. Okay, so we're going to read after reading 28. Okay, chapter 10, The Adventure of the Lions. Victory had a sweet taste. That taste was still with Don Quixote when they met a gentleman wearing a green overcoat. They decided to travel together since they were going in the same direction. The knight and the gentleman began a lively conversation. They talked about the man's family, what everyone did, and how his son was a student had decided to become a poet. It didn't take long for the man in the green coat to think that his new friend was crazy. Sancho wasn't interested in their talk, however. He saw some shepherds. Oh, sorry. It's 9:40, so it's past my bedtime. He saw some shepherds milking their sheep at the side of the road and took a small detour to talk to them. The shepherds had cottage cheese for sale, and Sancho bought some. About the same time, Don Quixote spotted a small caravan flying royal banners. He called his squire because Sancho had the helmet. Sancho didn't have time to eat the cottage cheese. Since he didn't know what to do with it, he stuffed it in his master's helmet. Don Quixote put the helmet on. The whey from the cottage cheese started to drip. Somewhat frightened, he asked Sancho for a cloth to clean himself with. Then he took the helmet off and smelled it. You traitor and bad friend, this is one of your dirty tricks, he yelled at Sancho. You put cottage cheese in my helmet, and I thought there was something seriously wrong with me. Sancho said sheepishly, Master, if it's cottage cheese, give it to me and I'll eat it. But believe me, Master, I don't know how that got in there. I think that same wizard must be after me, too, for being your squire. So now Sancho Panza is starting to blame things on the wizard, although Sancho Panza knows that it's not a wizard doing it. Okay, top of page 28. And as usual, Don Quixote blamed his enemies. Everything is possible, Sancho, he said. Their traveling companion could not believe what he had just seen and heard until he saw what came next. The ox cart with royal banners was at their side now. With it came a cart driver and another man. Don Quixote planted himself in the middle of the road, blocking their way. Where to, brothers? What are you carrying in that ox cart? What do those banners mean? He asked the men. The cart is mine, the driver answered. I'm transporting 2 brave lions to the court. They are a gift to the king. The banners mean that the cargo in His Majesty's property. Are the lions big? Don Quixote asked. They're the biggest that have ever crossed from Africa to Spain, the lion keeper said. I should know. I have transported many other lions before, but none like these. The one in the front cage is the male, the other the female. Right now they are very hungry. They haven't had anything to eat all day. So, your lordship, I suggest you move away and let us go. These animals need to be fed soon. Don Quixote smiled with pure joy. Lions, a couple of puny lions should scare me, eh? He said. Good man. Since you are the lion keeper, open the cages and let these beasts out. I will show them who Don Quixote de la Mancha is, in spite of the wizards who have sent them to me. Oh no, I hope not. The man in the green coat mumbled, No doubt about it. Either the man is crazy or the cottage cheese has softened his brain. Sancho, who heard his remark, said, No, he's not crazy, just bold. Everybody wanted to convince Don Quixote that it was foolhardy to face the lions. Actually, it was suicide, they said. But all the talk failed, and those presents scattered as fast and as far away as they could before the cage was opened. Sancho cried deep, heartfelt tears. Oh, my master, my friend is going to become a lion's dinner, he said between sobs. So, what does Don Quixote tell the lion keeper to do and why? Think about that for a second. So, he tells the lion keeper to let the lions out of their cages because he thinks they have been sent by the wizards to test whether he is brave and worthy of being a knight. Okay, so now let's continue reading. I'm at the top of page 30. Under threat, then, the lion keeper opened one cage. Don Quixote thought for a minute. Should he face the lion on horseback or on foot? On foot, he decided. Rocinante might get scared by the sight of the lion. The lion turned around in his cage, then stretched. He opened his mouth and yawned, then showed a huge tongue and cleaned his face with it. Next, he stuck his face out of the cage and looked around, his eyes like burning coals. Don Quixote stared at him. He wished with all his heart that the beast would jump on him so he could strangle it with his bare hands. The lion, on the other hand, wasn't interested. He turned around, showed his back to the knight, and sat down in his cage again. Don Quixote was furious. He wanted the lion keeper to make the lion mad. The lion keeper said he would not. No, your lordship, the lion had the cage open and didn't feel like coming out. You have proved beyond all doubt that you are a brave and courageous man. The lion didn't want to fight. The shame is on him. Don Quixote was satisfied with his reasoning and called all the others. They were dumbfounded at seeing him in one piece, without even a scratch. The lion keeper filled them in on the details and what they had missed, action and words. As soon as I arrive at the court, I will personally tell his majesty of Don Quixote's courage, he said. Sancho, on Don Quixote's orders, gave the driver and the lion keeper a little money to make up for the delay. The men went happily on their way, relieved that nothing had happened when they had expected the worst. From now on, Don Quixote announced, I shall proudly bear the title Knight of the Lions next to my own name. So he defeated the lions. Okay, so now, why was everyone else dumbfounded, shocked, and surprised? Well, they were hiding and are shocked to see that Don Quixote doesn't have any injuries, and they assumed that he fought the lions, which is not the case. But it was nice of the lion keeper to tell a story or two to help him. Okay, why does Samson disguise himself as the Knight of the Wood and purposely lie and say that he was defeated by Don Quixote? So he planned the scheme so it could provoke or make Don Quixote agitated into a duel. He was going to win the duel, decide Don Quixote's fate, and then force him to return home. But that's not what happened. What happened was then Don Quixote defeated him, and so then he didn't return home. Now, is there any evidence from these chapters that supports the view that Don Quixote is brave? And it says, record this information on activity page 1.3. Be sure to record the page or pages where you found the information. Okay, so we do have it. Let's see, what page number was that again? 1.3. So what I want you to do is go back to 1.3 in your book and go to where it says the brave category. Okay, and I will find it here as well. It'll be 1.3 here. Okay, so in 1.3, you will find the brave category. Now, I don't have my book in front of me. Hold on one second. Maybe I can bring it up really quickly. Okay, in Clever. I might be able to bring up where they have brave, because I don't want you to mess up your chart. Your chart is really well organized. And so let me see if I can grab it really quickly, hopefully. CKLA. Don Quixote, materials. Okay, and that gives me access to the answer key. Okay, good. Okay, so the first one is idealistic here. And then scroll down to the Don Quixote. Is that Sancho Panza? Okay, eccentric. So the first one is eccentric. Then scroll to the next page, and then we have idealistic and curious. And then if you go to the next page, that's where we have brave. So that's where we have brave. So we're looking for an example of him being brave. And so we're working on this third one right here. So I found some evidence in 24 through 26 and then 27 through 30. Okay. So what was brave about Don Quixote? Well, first of all, Don Quixote fights the Knight of the Wood. And then the other thing is he is willing to fight hungry lions. Okay, so those are our different proof. And I'm sorry that that cut off our page numbers, but it's 24 to 26 and then 27 through 30. Okay, if you need to write this down, go ahead and pause the video so that you can write it down. Okay, so then let's look about, we have talked in other lessons about the word chaotic, meaning unrealistically idealistic. Are there examples of these in chapters of Don Quixote exhibiting chaotic behavior? And just think for a moment. So some things that might be unrealistically idealistic is that he challenged the Knight of the Wood to a duel and insisted that the lion keeper release the lions from the cage. So those are things that are very idealistic. Okay, so now we did that. So I'd like to go over this next word. This next word is bold. Sancho says he's not crazy, he's bold. Bold means fearless, means that you don't fear anything. So one example is the pilgrims took the bold step of sailing to a new land to find religious freedom. So something that you do that might be fearless. Have you ever taken any bold actions or can think of anyone who has ever taken a bold action? So think about that for just a little bit. Now, bold is an adjective to describe a person. Okay, so I'd like you to do a little thumbs up, thumbs down if you agree or disagree. And you can do it kind of close to you if you want, since your friends are all around you. Okay, so determine if you agree or disagree with the following words are synonyms for bold. Synonyms mean they mean the same thing. Okay, start with brave. What do you think about brave? Synonym or not a synonym? Brave and bold are the same thing. How about courageous? Having a lot of courage, being courageous is a synonym for bold. How about cautious? No, cautious means you're very tentative and you're not wanting to get hurt. The next one is daring. Daring is very bold. And finally, fearful. Fearful is not bold. Okay, excellent. Okay, so now we're going to start writing our persuasive essay. So today you are going to be drafting the introductory paragraph of your persuasive essay. In the previous writing lesson, we drafted an opinion stating a claim that will be argued and supported in your persuasive essay. You will incorporate the claim into the introductory paragraph as the last sentence. So the first thing we need to identify would be the thesis statement. This is your belief. It's a provable and arguable claim. So you have to prove it. So that the introductory paragraph should include a lead or a hook. A lead or hook is the first sentence of an essay that effectively grabs the reader's attention and gives the reader some sense of what the essay will be about. So here we go. This is the introductory paragraph that we read the other day. And so it included all the most important parts of an introduction. So let me read this to you again. Have you ever read a story that made you want to shout at the main character? In the Brothers Grimm tale, The Fisherman and His Wife, a fisherman asks a magic fish to grant his greedy wife's wishes. The fisherman always does what his wife says, even when she asks for the power to make the sun and moon rise and set. The fisherman is a fool and should have acted differently in the story. So The lead or the hook in the model paragraph grabs the reader's attention by asking the question. Have you ever read a story that made you want to shout at the main character? Posing a question is a great way to grab readers' attention, but sometimes giving a startling fact or statistic or asking the reader to imagine something is another way. So after the hook, you should write what type of story it is. And you should tell the name of the story as well. So you notice how the next sentence says, in the Brothers Grimm, the fisherman and his wife, a fisherman asks a magic fish to grant his greedy wife's wishes. So you give an important detail, but you also say who the author was and then what the name of the story is. So now, after that, you want to give them a couple more details that gives the basic summary. So you're going to introduce the readers to the text. Now, the last thing you do in the introductory paragraph is to state your claim. This is your belief. The fisherman is a fool and should have acted differently in the story. Now, notice how you don't say, I believe that. You just make a claim. You just say the fisherman is a fool and should have acted differently in the story. Okay. So now, all right, so here are the ideas for the lead or the hook. Ask the reader a question. Define an important term. Some say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. So you can define a term or even describe a character. Don Quixote is an old gentleman who convinces himself that he is a knight. Good. And then they even have ask the reader a question. Have you ever read a story that made you want to shout at the main character? You could also start with a quote, which is a memorable piece of dialogue. Master, master, they are windmills, Sancho repeated urgently. They are not giants, master. They are windmills. Windmills. This quotation gives just one example of the crazy things Don Quixote does in his quest to be a knight in the modern world. So if you start with a quote, you need to explain how that supports what you want. Okay, so here are all 4 options for a lead or a hook. Okay, so true would be thumbs up, false will be thumbs down. The introductory paragraph must include a hook. Up downs or thumbs or down thumbs. And it's up thumbs. They should always include a hook. Okay, second one, the introductory paragraph includes evidence to support the thesis claim. False. Never give away any of your evidence in the first paragraph. The first paragraph is just an introduction to get people excited about what they're about to read. Okay, the last one, the thesis or claim is the first sentence of the introductory paragraph. False, it is the last. Okay. All right, so would you turn to 7.3 in your activity workbook? This activity page contains a chart that's going to help you, and I've got it here, help you organize the parts of your introductory paragraph. You can draft the introductory paragraph in complete sentences on the lines below the chart. So you'll be able to put your whole introductory paragraph together. But we've got to first do our first part, our draft. Give me just 1 second to get to the right page here in my. Boy, we've done a lot. We're moving right along with this unit. Okay. All right. So one more moment. Almost there. Oh, I passed it. I'm like, this doesn't look familiar. So I passed it. Okay. All right. So now, the persuasive essay rubric is located in your student resources section of the activity book SR3. So we can take a look at the persuasive essay rubric in a little bit. Okay. So now we need to write our introductory paragraph. Now, one of the things that you're going to need to do is to look back at activity page 5.4. So let me go to 5.4 as well. And 5.4 is on page 81. Do you see how you stated your opinion to the essay prompt? Do Don Quixote's good intentions justify his actions? I know I had you write that they did not justify it, but you're allowed to have your opinion. If you want to write about that he was justified in his actions, or if he is not justified in his actions, you get to write this. So no worries. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is, let's go back to our 7.3. Okay, so the prompt is, do Don Quixote's good intentions justify his actions? So, do Don Quixote's good intentions justify his actions? So basically, is the trouble that he's causing worth his good intentions and everything? So now what I'd like you to do with your first draft is start with a question like, have you ever known a person who is unreasonably idealistic? Or you could use a memorable detail from the book, or you could describe the character. Don Quixote is an eccentric person who believes he's a real knight. Or you could quote a memorable piece of dialogue from the book. So under just the first draft, would you go ahead and write your first sentence, your hook? So this is the hook. The lead is the hook. Okay, pause the video while you get a little bit of a chance to finish that. Okay, so now the next thing you need to do is to introduce the text. You'll need to include the title of the text, The Adventures of Don Quixote, the author's name, the main characters, the setting, and a basic plot summary. So that's the second part of the introduction. So you're going to say in Cervantes, and if you need help with spelling Cervantes, it's Cervantes, or you could use this author because he's the author of the abridged version that's for fifth graders. So you could say in Palacio's Adventures of Don Quixote, and then just give a quick overview. Who are the main characters and what do they want to do and where are they? Just to give a quick plot summary of what is happening in the story. And then the very last sentence is going to be your claim. And that's going to be the answer, that you believe that Don Quixote's good intentions justify his action or they don't. All right, so go ahead and pause the video until you've written under the first draft, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, welcome back. The last thing I want you to do is bring it all together. Write the lead plus the introduction to the text plus stating the claim. And remember, everything needs to be in complete sentences, and it is just one paragraph. There is more room on the second page if you need it, because sometimes paragraphs can be a little bit lengthy. Okay, you may pause the video while you finish that. Okay, if you're back, it's because you finished your introductory paragraph. Tomorrow, we are going to take another practice quiz with the spelling and see how you might be improving. I always like to see how quickly you improve with your spelling. Okay, great work. Keep up the awesome work. And then remember, fifth graders, I hope you're working quietly for one, but then also remember, boost and your IXLs, please. All right. When in doubt, boost it out. Okay. I hope you have an amazing day, and I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. All right. Take care, everyone. All right. Bye for now.